Sonia Rouse was last seen in the vicinity of South Champlain Avenue and East 75th Street in Chicago, Illinois, at 11 p.m. on March 5, 2016. She has never been heard from again. Rouse graduated from Illinois State University with a journalism degree. She dreamed of becoming a broadcast journalist. After college and giving birth to a daughter, she developed mental health conditions and started abusing substances to cope. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and her mother took custody of her daughter. Despite her struggles, Rouse had an arrangement with her mother where her mother would reach out to her every few days by text or calling, and if she didn't hear back from her, she would go to the police. At the time of her disappearance, Rouse was in an abusive relationship with her live-in boyfriend, and her mother believes he could have been involved in her case. After Rouse disappeared, her boyfriend was imprisoned, and during his incarceration, a corrections official offered to arrange for him to be interviewed by police. However, the police declined to take up the opportunity. The boyfriend was never interviewed in connection to Sonia's case, and he died about a year after his release from prison. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance remain unclear, but her mother strongly believes that Sonia came to harm. To this day, her family is left without answers, and Sonia Rouse remains missing. On the night of November 20th, 2006, 19-year-old Jessie Ross vanished without a trace in downtown Chicago, Illinois. The University of Missouri-Kansas City sophomore was attending a United Nations mock conference hosted at the Sheraton Grand Hotel. Despite an active investigation and tireless efforts from his family, Jessie's disappearance remains one of Chicago's most unsettling unsolved cases. Jesse Warren Ross was a bright and charismatic young man who loved music, his family, and making people laugh. Growing up in Kansas City, Missouri, Jesse was known for his outgoing personality and witty sense of humor. Friends often described him as the life of the party, someone who could lighten the mood in any situation. At UMKC, Jesse majored in communications and quickly became well-liked among his peers. He also worked as an intern at a local radio station, where he showcased his creativity and love for music. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Jesse was excited about attending the Collegiate United Nations mock conference in Chicago. The event brought together hundreds of college students from across the country to simulate real-world international negotiations. For Jesse, it was a chance to travel, meet new people, and have fun while learning, something that perfectly matched his adventurous spirit. Jesse arrived in Chicago with his UMKC team on November 19, 2006. The conference was held at the Sheraton Grand Hotel, a towering structure situated along the Chicago River in the city's bustling downtown area. Students were assigned rigorous schedules, with formal meetings, group discussions, and plenty of downtime for socializing. On the evening of November 20th, Jesse attended a conference-sanctioned party, where alcohol was reportedly present despite the attendees being underage. Witnesses said Jesse was drinking, but did not appear overly intoxicated. Known for his social and energetic nature, Jesse was seen mingling, cracking jokes, and enjoying himself. Around 2 a.m. on November 21st, an emergency meeting was called in one of the hotel's conference rooms. While it's unclear why the meeting was held so late, attendees were required to participate. Jesse was present and reportedly left the meeting around 2:50 a.m. to return to his hotel room. The conference room was on the hotel's lower level, and Jesse would have needed to take an elevator or stairs to reach his floor. What happened next remains a mystery. Jesse never made it back to his room, and no one reported seeing him leave the conference room. His roommate and close friend assumed Jesse had stayed out with other attendees or wandered off to explore the city, something that would not have been out of character for him. When Jesse failed to show up for the next morning's events, his friends and UMKC faculty grew concerned. Calls to his cell phone went unanswered, and no one had seen or heard from him since the early hours of November 21st. By mid-morning, hotel staff and conference organizers were alerted to his disappearance, and Jesse's parents, Don and Donna Ross, received a dreaded phone call informing them that their son was missing. The Chicago Police Department launched an immediate search. Investigators retraced Jesse's last known movements, speaking to conference attendees, hotel staff, and anyone who might have interacted with him that night. Surveillance footage from the Sheraton Grand Hotel was reviewed, but shockingly, there were no clear images of Jesse after he left the Ontario conference room. The lack of CCTV footage was particularly puzzling, given the hotel's location in downtown Chicago. While some exits were monitored, there were areas without camera coverage, a detail that would later raise questions about how Jesse might have left the premises unnoticed. From the beginning, theories about Jesse's disappearance began to circulate. Police initially speculated that alcohol played a role in his vanishing, suggesting that Jesse may have accidentally fallen into the nearby Chicago River. The Sheraton Grand Hotel is situated close to the riverfront, and its proximity made this a plausible, albeit tragic, possibility. However, there was no immediate evidence to support this theory. Jesse's family strongly disagreed with the suggestion that he wandered off alone and fell into the river. Don and Donna Ross knew their son as responsible and street-smart, unlikely to put himself in a dangerous situation, even after drinking. Additionally, Jesse had left behind no personal items, such as his wallet, cell phone, or mixed CDs he had brought to the conference, which only deepened the mystery. One theory that emerged was that Jesse might have planned to meet someone in Chicago that night to showcase his music. Don and Donna strongly believe their son may have made an innocent, albeit risky, arrangement with someone he met online or through mutual contacts, without realizing the potential danger. Despite this theory, there was no evidence to confirm any clandestine meeting. In their search for answers, Don and Donna combed through their son's computer and social media accounts. While they uncovered his deep passion for music and DJing, they didn't find any suspicious communications. Jesse's interest in pursuing a career as a DJ, combined with his vibrant personality, could have led him to explore new connections while in Chicago. Jesse might have planned to meet someone in Chicago that night to showcase his music. Don and Donna strongly believe their son may have made an innocent, albeit risky, arrangement with someone he met online or through mutual contacts, without realizing the potential danger. Despite this theory, there was no evidence to confirm any clandestine meeting. In their search for answers, Don and Donna combed through their son's computer and social media accounts. While they uncovered his deep passion for music and DJing, they didn't find any suspicious communications. Jesse's interest in pursuing a career as a DJ, combined with his vibrant personality, could have led him to explore new connections while in Chicago. The Chicago River remained a key focus of police and private investigator searches. The authorities' theory that Jesse had wandered off, perhaps intoxicated, and fallen into the river was based on the proximity of the waterway to the Sheraton and his state of impairment that night. However, Don Ross pointed out that it was unlikely Jesse would have wandered near the water. The Ross family was skeptical of this scenario because Jesse was very aware of the dangers of wandering in unfamiliar urban areas. Despite police sonar searches and dive teams scanning the river, no sign of Jesse or his belongings was ever discovered. Don and Donna worked tirelessly to keep Jesse's case in the public eye. The family set up a Find Jesse Ross campaign, utilizing posters, media interviews, and social media to spread awareness. Jesse's story was covered nationally, including segments on Nancy Grace and various true crime programs, but the case remained cold. As the investigation progressed, conflicting witness statements muddied the timeline. Some of Jesse's fellow conference attendees claimed he appeared sober and in good spirits at the emergency meeting in the Ontario room. Others insisted he was visibly intoxicated and needed assistance walking. These contradictions raise concerns about the accuracy of witness memories, particularly given the late hour and widespread drinking at the conference. One significant discovery was the absence of key CCTV footage. Chicago police confirmed that the Sheraton's cameras failed to capture Jesse's movements after he left the Ontario room. This critical gap in surveillance compounded the mystery, leading investigators to wonder whether Jesse left the hotel under his own volition or was coerced. Private investigator Peter Duffy later emphasized that the hotel's hidden exit, the one without camera coverage, was a likely route Jesse took that night. If so, it could explain why his movements were never recorded again. However, Duffy also uncovered reluctance from some witnesses to speak openly, which fueled speculation about what truly happened during the party and late-night meeting. The Ross family's heartbreak deepened as the years passed without answers. Jesse's disappearance was particularly painful for his younger brother, Andy, who had always looked up to him. In interviews, Don and Donna Ross often expressed frustration with the investigation's unresolved questions. Why was Jesse's wallet missing, along with his mixed CDs? Was there someone waiting to meet Jesse that night? Why did no one see him after 2:50 a.m., despite the bustling downtown area? Equally puzzling was the gallon of vodka found among Jesse's belongings. While it was clear the conference attendees had been drinking, the Ross family wondered if Jesse had consumed far less than assumed, given his slender frame. Even a moderate amount of alcohol could have impaired his judgment, making him vulnerable. Despite the grim circumstances, Don and Donna Ross never gave up hope. They organized searches in Chicago, consulted experts, and collaborated with advocacy groups for missing persons. The family's unwavering determination served as a testament to their love for Jesse and their refusal to let his story fade into obscurity. In 2011, Jesse's case received renewed attention on the anniversary of his disappearance. The Kansas City Star and other local outlets revisited his story, reminding readers that a bright, beloved young man vanished without a trace. The Ross family marked each passing year with public events to honor Jesse's memory and keep the search alive. Several theories persist about what happened to Jesse Ross that night. Accidental drowning. The leading police theory remains that Jesse wandered near the Chicago River and fell in, possibly due to alcohol impairment. However, the lack of evidence and the family's skepticism challenge this conclusion. Foul play. Some speculate that Jesse may have encountered foul play, perhaps a robbery gone wrong, after leaving the Ontario room. The missing wallet lends credibility to this theory. Meeting gone wrong. Jesse's interest in music and DJing could have led him to arrange a meeting with someone in Chicago. If so, it's possible he was lured into a dangerous situation under false pretenses. The hidden exit, the poorly lit unmonitored exit near the Ontario room, remains a focal point. Did Jesse leave through this exit alone, or was he accompanied? If so, why did no one notice? Despite exhaustive efforts by law enforcement, private investigators, and Jesse's family, his disappearance remains an open case. Jesse Warren Ross was last seen on November 21, 2006, at the age of 19. To this day, his parents continue to hold on to hope that someone, somewhere, knows the truth. If you have any information about Jesse Ross's disappearance, please contact the Chicago Police Department or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. No piece of information is too small, and every detail matters in the search for answers. Marian Switolski was last seen in Chicago, Illinois, on the evening of July 15, 1963. That night, the 16-year-old attended a carnival at St. Priscilla's Catholic Church with friends, enjoying the summer festivities in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood. By 10:15 p.m., Marian vanished without a trace, and her family would never see her again. What made Marianne's disappearance particularly puzzling was a letter that arrived 2 days later. Postmarked in Oak Park, Illinois, a nearby suburb where Marian often shopped with her family, the letter was addressed to her parents. In her handwriting, Marian reassured her family that she was fine and insisted they not worry. She said she was experiencing a strange but educational experience and would send them money soon. Yet, her words carried an ominous tone. She hinted she might never return home or see her family and friends again, but promised to call them eventually. Despite her reassurances, Marianne's family never heard from her again. Her parents were left stunned, unable to comprehend why she had seemingly run away. According to those closest to her, Marianne's life before her disappearance gave no indication of unhappiness. She was a good student who had just finished her junior year at Notre Dame High School. Marion had already placed a deposit for her senior yearbook and class ring, suggesting she had every intention of completing high school. She worked part-time at a neighborhood store, babysat regularly, and lived at home with her parents and younger sister in the 6200 block of West Cornelia Avenue. Her disappearance was out of character for a responsible, family-oriented teenager. Investigators eventually discovered that Marion had joined a traveling organization that sold magazines door-to-door. Such groups were common in the 1960s, offering adventurous young people the promise of travel and income. At the time of her disappearance, this group was en route to California. Police managed to track down the couple in charge of the magazine-selling operation, but their statements only deepened the mystery. The wife claimed that Marion had left the group sometime after joining. The husband, however, contradicted her, insisting Marion had never even left Chicago. Their conflicting accounts raised suspicions, but no definitive answers emerged. Marianne's decision to join the group, if done willingly, may have stemmed from a desire for independence or escape. Still, her parents could not reconcile this with the daughter they knew, a responsible, studious young woman who loved her family and had concrete plans for her future. It's unclear whether Marion left voluntarily or became involved in something she could not escape. In the decades since her disappearance, the letter remains one of the few tangible clues. The postmark in Oak Park suggests she may have spent time in the area, but her exact movements after July 15, 1963, remain unknown. Did she willingly join the traveling group and fall into harm along the way? Did someone influence her decision to leave home, or did she encounter foul play soon after? Today, the disappearance of Marion Switolski is still unsolved. There have been no confirmed sightings of her since 1963, and no one has ever been held accountable for her vanishing. She was a young woman with dreams and a family who loved her, and she deserves to be remembered. If alive today, Marion would be in her late 70s. Her family and investigators still hope that someone, somewhere, holds a key to the truth, a memory, a clue, or a detail that could solve the mystery of what happened to Marion Switolski on that summer evening in 1963. Erica Thompson was last seen in Brookfield, Illinois, at 4:30 p.m. on September 25, 2019. Security cameras at a bank in the Eight Corners Business District captured footage of her making a deposit. The bank, located close to her home in the 9200 block of Monroe Avenue, was part of her daily routine, and the footage shows her acting normally. However, that would be the last confirmed sighting of Erica. She missed work the following day, and as time passed without contact, the growing silence became ominous. Erica Thompson was not reported missing until October 1st, 6 days after the last time anyone saw her. When police arrived to check Erica's home, they were immediately struck by the unusual scene. The back door of her house was ajar, and despite the moderate fall weather, the air conditioning had been left running. Inside, her usually tidy home was in disarray. Moldy dishes cluttered the sink and were found next to her bed. Cat vomit had gone unnoticed or uncleaned in various parts of the home, which friends and family emphasized was highly uncharacteristic of Erica. She lived alone with her beloved cats and took great pride in keeping her home clean. The security cameras installed at her residence, a precaution Erica had taken for her own safety, offered no answers. The footage had been recently erased. Although Erica's cats were still in the house, which suggested she hadn't planned an extended trip, several critical items were missing. Her cellular phone, purse, Illinois driver's license, house keys, and car keys were gone. So was her car, a dark purple 2014 Nissan Juke with Illinois license, plate number E273380. The vehicle, though dark purple, could easily appear dark brown or black in certain lighting conditions. A photo of a similar car was released by authorities in the hopes that someone might spot it. As the investigation unfolded, police discovered unsettling evidence. Someone other than Erica had driven her vehicle on September 26, the day after she was last seen. The car had been traced to several locations far beyond Brookfield. It was spotted in Decatur, Illinois and Mount Vernon, Illinois, two towns over 180 miles and 240 miles south of Brookfield, respectively. These locations painted a confusing picture. Someone had control of Erica's car and was driving it far away from her quiet suburban life. Erica's cellular phone added another layer to the mystery. Investigators were able to trace its pings to several towns near Brookfield during the early morning hours of September 26. The signal appeared in Countryside, Hodgkins, McCook, Forest View, Summit, and Ridgeview, a string of locations surrounding her home. It suggested movement, but not the kind of movement that led to answers. Then, on October 2nd, police received a significant break when Erica's phone was found discarded in a roadside ditch. The location? Springfield, Missouri, a staggering 7-hour drive southwest of Brookfield. Why had her phone ended up there, and who had left it? At the time of her disappearance, Erica Thompson was employed as a comptroller at Empire Hard Chrome Inc., a Chicago-based company. Colleagues described her as diligent, reliable, and meticulous in her work, traits that match her private life as well. Erica's loved ones painted a picture of a quiet, home-oriented woman with a handful of close-knit hobbies. She enjoyed crocheting and spent hours tending to her garden. Genealogical research and computers were other passions that kept her content in her free time. One particular detail stood out to her family. Erica had significant anxiety about driving long distances. She avoided unfamiliar routes and preferred to stay close to home, further complicating the sudden discovery of her vehicle and phone so far away. To those who knew her, Erica's disappearance seemed completely out of character. She lived alone and valued her independence, but she wasn't the type to vanish without explanation. The open back door, the erased security footage, and the disturbing condition of her home all suggested that something had gone terribly wrong. Investigators continue to piece together Erica's final hours and movements, hoping that someone, a witness, a passerby, or a person with unspoken knowledge, will step forward. For now, Erica Thompson's case remains unsolved. What happened to Erica? In West Chicago, Illinois, 45-year-old John Spira was finishing up some paperwork at his office, preparing for a weekend of relaxation. Little did anyone know, John would never get that chance. On this seemingly ordinary day, John Spira would go missing, sparking a mystery that has never been fully solved. The weather that day was cold but bright. With a high of -4 degrees Celsius, a snowstorm was forecast to hit the following day, but the calm before the storm would be the last bit of serenity John would know. John Michael Spira was born on September 24, 1961, in Chicago, Illinois. At 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Army before transitioning into the world of telecommunications and construction. Working his way up the ranks, John eventually owned a utility cable company called Universal Cable Construction by the age of 45. While he was dedicated to his work, John also had a vibrant social life. Known around town as Chicago Johnny, he played guitar in a local blues band called the Rebel Rousers. In 1983, he met a woman named Suzanne at a blues bar, and after a short courtship, they married. Though the couple never had children of their own, Suzanne brought a daughter, Heather, from a previous relationship. However, their blended family would soon face turmoil. In 1995, Heather was convicted of murder in Buffalo, New York, after killing her boyfriend. Suzanne temporarily relocated to support Heather during the trial, and after Heather was sentenced to prison, Suzanne returned to West Chicago. In 2005, John and Susan decided to divorce, but continued living in the same house, a strange situation made more uncomfortable by John's burgeoning relationship with a woman named Renata. As their divorce neared finalization, John and Renata grew closer, and he was eager to move on with his life. February 23, 2007, began like any other day for John. At 6:30 a.m., He sat down for breakfast at his usual spot, ordering fried eggs, bacon, hash browns, and toast. By 7:23 a.m., he returned home and went to the basement, where he placed a call to his divorce lawyer. Suzanne joined the call, and the couple finalized the terms of their divorce. All they needed to do was sign the paperwork the following week. At 9 a.m., John arrived at his office at Universal Cable Construction, where he would work until 2:30 p.m., when his friend and business associate Jim Emma stopped by for a meeting. The two discussed business before talking about their plans for the weekend, with John inviting Jim to see his band play the following night. At 5 p.m., John called Renata to ask if she wanted to join him for dinner, but she was busy with work and declined. At 7 p.m., John was still at the office, talking to a vendor named Daniel Bernadette. The meeting ended at 7:30 p.m., and John was last seen alone in his office. From that point on, his whereabouts became a mystery. John had made plans to meet a friend for dinner in Oak Brook, Illinois, at 8:30 p.m., but he never showed up. Renata called him several times throughout the evening, but he never answered. The next day, she tried again, thinking he might be avoiding her due to the previous day's dinner plans. That night, Renata went to the Chop House, a steakhouse where John's band, the Rebel Rousers, was supposed to play. She knew he wouldn't be able to avoid her if she showed up. When Renata arrived, she saw Jim Emma, who confirmed he had planned to attend the show after John had invited him. Inside, however, Renata was shocked to learn that John hadn't shown up for his band's gig. This was completely out of character for him. He had never missed a show in over 20 years. Renata knew something was terribly wrong. Still unable to reach John the following morning, Renata called the police to report him missing. However, the police told her they couldn't take the report, as only his next of kin could do so. By 3 p.m. on February 25th, John Spira officially reported John missing. Police immediately began investigating. Starting at Universal Cable Construction, John's last known location. His two vehicles were found in the company's parking lot, but there was no sign of him inside the office. Employees reported that John's belongings were all still in his office, but there was one strange detail. An industrial roll of plastic wrap was missing. This raised suspicions. Despite thorough searches of the surrounding area, no evidence was found. The investigation stalled as the police ran out of leads and suspects. The mystery deepened, and John Spira remained missing. As the investigation continued, authorities learned that John had been keeping secrets. While he appeared to be committed to his girlfriend Renata, he was, in fact, seeing multiple other women. When police looked into his phone records, they discovered that Renata was just one of many girlfriends in John's life. He was in the process of finalizing his divorce, which would soon be completed, but his personal life was far more complicated than it appeared. Some speculated that John may have wanted to start fresh, leaving behind his wife, Renata, and his responsibilities. However, his bank accounts and credit cards had not been used since February 23, 2007, indicating that if he had indeed chosen to start a new life, he had planned it very carefully. John had been living with Suzanne in the same household for over 2 years after their separation, and while Susan claimed they had a good working relationship, those close to John said otherwise. His sister, Stephanie McNeil, described their relationship as cold, with minimal interaction except for occasional arguments. On March 8, 2007, 2 weeks after John's disappearance, his divorce was finalized. By summer, Suzanne had sold off their marital assets and moved out of state. On October 30th, 2011, John Spira was found dead in her Orchard Park, New York, home at the age of 60. Stephanie McNeil believed Suzanne was responsible for John's disappearance, but would never get the answer she sought, as Susan took the truth to her grave. Another person who raised suspicions was John's business partner, David Steuben. Steuben had been one of the last people to see John alive and painted a much darker picture of him. Steuben claimed that John had accumulated over $1 million in debt and may have been embezzling from their company. When police tried to investigate further, Steuben refused to cooperate, denying them access to his property in Missouri and declining a polygraph test. After John's disappearance, Steuben took control of the company, and in 2007, a suspicious fire destroyed the Universal Cable Construction building. The fire, which was intense enough to obscure traffic signals, led to an insurance payout that went directly to Steuben. In 2017, when reporters from Crime Watch Daily tried to question Steuben about his role in John's disappearance, he hid his face and refused to speak. The mystery of John Spira's disappearance remains unsolved, though there are several theories. Some believe that John was murdered by one of two suspects, his wife Suzanne or his business partner David Steuben. Both had motives and benefited from John's disappearance. The timing of his disappearance, just as he was about to finalize his divorce, points to Suzanne as a prime suspect. It's believed that she may have shown up at Universal Cable Construction, lured John into a vulnerable position, and killed him, possibly with the help of an accomplice. Regardless of who was responsible, John Spira's case remains a haunting unsolved mystery, with his family and friends left to wonder what happened to the man they knew. Gary Shanley was last seen in the early hours of November 23, 2006, around 1:30 a.m. at the Double Deuce Bar, located near Falling Springs and Mildred Avenue in East St. Louis, Illinois. Since that night, he has not been heard from, prompting concern among his family and friends. Following his disappearance, investigators discovered his jeans discarded on the floor of the apartment he had only recently moved into, with his belt still threaded through the loops, suggesting an abrupt exit. Nearby, his money, cell phone, and identification card were left undisturbed on a table, while his maroon Sonoma pickup truck remained parked in the lot. Notably, however, his wallet and keys were missing. This scenario led loved ones to believe he may have returned to his apartment to change clothes before leaving in haste. At the time he vanished, Shanley had no credit cards and only a few dollars in his bank account, making a living through various odd jobs. He had a job lined up for November 26 that would have earned him $200, yet he failed to show up. Known for his stable routine, Shanley rarely traveled and was deeply involved in family activities, which made his absence from the Thanksgiving celebration on November 25th all the more unsettling. Additionally, he missed an important custody hearing scheduled for December 4th, a significant event in his life that his mother noted was exceedingly out of character for him. The circumstances surrounding Gary's disappearance remain mysterious, and his case is still under investigation by the Cahokia, Illinois police, leaving his family and friends seeking answers and closure regarding his whereabouts. Charles Southern, who served as the assistant chairman of the English department at a Chicago junior college, mysteriously vanished in December 1987, leading to speculation that his disappearance might be linked to Terry Hoffman, a spiritual leader and founder of the group Conscious Development of Body, Mind, and Soul. Terry, who claimed to be battling sinister entities she referred to as Black Lords, garnered a following nationwide, with Charles being one of many who joined her local chapter, possibly as part of his quest for enlightenment and deeper religious understanding. Rising rapidly within the organization, Charles took on the role of instructor for meditation sessions and relevant courses, eventually receiving an invitation to Terry's home in Dallas. At this point, she alleged that she was under constant attack from the aforementioned Black Lords and had her inner circle create what she called a psychic shield. However, these claims led to panic within her close followers, many of whom began experiencing severe emotional and mental health struggles. A turning point came when Charles was found wandering the streets in a disheveled state, clutching a newspaper and proclaiming, "I live for art," which prompted his sister to take him to the hospital, fearing for his safety. During his recovery, his mother, Ingeborg Southern, visited him daily, while two of Terry's followers unexpectedly requested her to leave so they could speak privately with Charles. After his release, he resumed his normal routine, maintaining his involvement with the group despite apparent disputes with Terry herself. As December approached, Charles had plans to travel to India over his Christmas break and communicate with his family several times in the days leading up to his scheduled departure, though Ingeborg sensed something was amiss. In their final exchange, he assured her that he was fine and would be leaving soon. However, when 2 weeks passed without any communication, his family initially assumed he was abroad. It wasn't until they entered his home that they discovered unsettling evidence. His passport lacked any entry stamps for India, and they found a powerful drug resembling curare, typically used as an anesthetic, concealed in a drawer. More disturbingly, Charles's coat was displayed inside out on a ceremonial stool, adorned with his hat, a traditional Nigerian symbol of death. They stumbled upon 2 barely decipherable notes, one of which indicated that he felt he had fallen under a harmful influence and was attempting to combat it, while the other appeared to be a will naming Terry as the executor of his estate. This alarming discovery mirrored a pattern of tragic events surrounding Terry, with numerous allegations linking her to the deaths of her former husbands, her only son, and several followers, which included instances of suicide, suspicious accidents, and even murder. Charles's ties to her organization painted a grim picture, as many individuals who had associated with Terry had left her significant financial estates, adding to the mystery and dread that surrounded her. Despite being a person of interest, Terry Hoffman was never charged in connection with any of the deaths, including Charles's disappearance. The case was featured on a television episode of Unsolved Mysteries in November 1995, yet Terry did not respond to the request for an interview. Her dubious dealings continued to haunt her. Although she was sentenced to prison for bankruptcy fraud in 1994, she escaped accountability for the multiple deaths linked to her life. After remarrying and changing her name to Terry Lilia Keenley, she passed away in October 2015. Tragically, Charles's mother, Ingeborg, also passed away in the same year at the age of 94, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions surrounding her son's fate. Catherine Runt's disappearance on May 22, 1979, remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in Palatine, Illinois. That night, Catherine, a 29-year-old woman, had a heated argument with her husband of 6 years, Robert Runt, at their home in the Spinnaker's Cove subdivision on Sanborn Drive. The confrontation escalated to violence, according to Robert, who claimed that Catherine scratched him, kicked him in the jaw, breaking it, and slashed his hand with a kitchen knife. After the altercation, Robert said Catherine ran away from the house, disappearing into the night. Catherine left with only her purse, credit cards, and a small amount of cash. Robert allegedly stopped her from taking the car, and he thought she had simply run off to calm down. He expected her to return soon, but she never did. After that night, Catherine has never been heard from again. Robert painted a picture of Catherine as a woman with mental health issues, suggesting she was afraid of being hospitalized, though her family and co-workers disagreed. They all described her as being in good spirits just before her disappearance. In fact, Catherine was looking forward to her mother's upcoming second marriage, and there were no signs that she intended to leave her life behind. She had a part-time job as an interior designer for Kathy Metzler Interiors in Barrington, Illinois, which she seemed to enjoy. Catherine also gave tennis lessons, indicating that her life was stable and she was socially engaged. But there were troubling events leading up to Catherine's disappearance. 8 months earlier, her home had been invaded by 2 armed burglars. The man and woman forced their way inside, handcuffed Catherine to a beam in the basement, and ransacked the house for hours. They stole over $5,000 worth of jewelry, and while Catherine was not physically harmed, the traumatic experience left a deep mark. Her stepdaughter found her when she arrived home from school, and although the burglars were never caught, the invasion raised questions about whether it had any connection to Catherine's later disappearance. Following Catherine's sudden vanishing, Robert filed for divorce, citing desertion, and eventually moved to Florida. Before leaving Illinois, he filed for bankruptcy, claiming that his coin-operated games manufacturing business was $200,000 in debt. In 1984, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to sell stolen goods across state lines after attempting to sell $350,000 worth of stolen art. Meanwhile, the investigation into Catherine's disappearance turned up no solid leads. Her credit cards were never used, and area taxi drivers reported that they had not given her a ride on the day she went missing. This was strange, considering Catherine had previously left Robert for short periods of time, ranging from a few hours to several days, but she always kept her family informed and always returned home. This time, however, she did not. Catherine's family has never heard from her since that night in 1979. Authorities, based on the circumstances and the passage of time, believe she is likely dead. Although Robert Rund is considered a possible suspect in her disappearance, there has been no conclusive evidence to charge him with any crime. The case remains unsolved, and Catherine's loved ones still seek answers, hoping for closure and understanding about what really happened to her. Adding to the eerie nature of Catherine's case is the fact that another resident of Spinnaker's Cove, Stephanie Ling, had gone missing 2 years earlier, in 1977. Stephanie's husband was later convicted of her murder, though her body was never found. Despite the similarities in the nature of these two cases, authorities have stated that there is no known connection between Stephanie Ling's presumed murder and Catherine's disappearance. The mystery of Catherine Rund's fate endures to this day. Was she a victim of foul play, or did she leave her life behind voluntarily? Without answers, the case remains a tragic, unresolved chapter in the history of Palatine, Illinois. Karen Sheppers was a 23-year-old woman living in Carpentersville, Illinois, when she disappeared on the night of April 16, 1983. It was a Saturday, and Karen had gone out with a group of about 20 co-workers to celebrate a promotion at her job as a computer programmer at First Chicago Bank Card. The celebration took place at a local bar, and by all accounts, Karen had a fun and enjoyable time. She was the last person in her group to leave the bar, a sign of just how deeply she had connected with her colleagues and how well she had enjoyed her night. But as the hours stretched into the early morning, Karen's bright future began to slip away. At around 1 a.m., she left the bar, seemingly in good spirits, yet was never seen again. In the days and weeks that followed, Karen's disappearance would leave many unanswered questions. Had she made it home safely? The answer to that question has never been found. Her apartment, when checked, was completely undisturbed, offering no clues as to what happened to her that night. Her bright yellow 1980 Toyota Celica hatchback, which had distinctive red accent stripes, was also gone. Despite extensive searches, the car was never located, and it's as though both Karen and her car vanished into thin air. The vehicle identification number for her Toyota Celica was RA4232630, and it had Illinois license plate number XP8919. A photo of a similar vehicle is attached to the case, a constant reminder of the missing car that could hold vital clues. However, despite countless efforts to track it down, it was as if Karen had never existed. Before her disappearance, Karen had been in a relationship with a man she was unofficially engaged to. They had been planning for a future together. But only 2 weeks before her disappearance, they decided that neither of them was ready for marriage. They remained close, and Karen had even invited him to join her at the bar that night, but he declined. He had an early start the next day, and they parted on amicable terms. Her fiancé, who later married someone else, passed a lie detector test in the wake of Karen's disappearance, and authorities cleared him as a suspect. He was devastated by her disappearance, but there was no evidence to suggest he had any involvement. Karen's case grew even more perplexing when investigators discovered that there had been no activity on any of her financial accounts after that night. Her bank accounts, credit cards, and social security number remained untouched. She had left behind $7,000 in savings, including a $1,200 tax return, funds that should have been easily accessible if she were alive. Not a single transaction occurred in the months following her disappearance. Karen also left behind all of her clothing and personal belongings, a stark contrast to what one might expect if she had simply chosen to disappear. Karen was an accomplished woman with numerous hobbies and a promising career. She was a graduate of Sycamore High School and had built a successful career as a computer programmer. Her work at First Chicago Bank Card was something she truly enjoyed, and she had no outstanding debts at the time. In fact, she had recently paid off her car, something that spoke to her responsible and organized nature. She was a creative soul, enjoying hobbies such as sewing, knitting, and playing the piano. Her life seemed full of promise and potential, which made her sudden and unexplained disappearance even more puzzling. To this day, Karen Scheppers has never been found, and her case remains unsolved. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are chilling, with few clues to go on and no clear leads. Her loved ones continue to search for answers, hoping for the closure they so desperately need. What happened to Karen Scheppers on that fateful night in April 1983? Was it a tragic accident, a crime, or something else entirely? The questions remain unanswered, and the mystery of Karen's disappearance endures, a haunting reminder of how easily someone can vanish without a trace. Her case, still unsolved after all these years, raises more questions than answers, and the search for the truth continues, with the hope that one day someone will uncover the mystery of Karen Scheppers' fate. Dylan Scott was last seen on February 28, 2016, in rural Bureau County, Illinois, when his green 1994 Cadillac struck a guardrail on Route 29 near Echo Bluff Park around 3 o'clock a.m. The crash left minor damage to the front end of the vehicle, and there was no blood found at the scene, nor had the airbag deployed, which suggested that the driver was likely not seriously injured in the accident. Dylan's best friend, who was with him that night, reported witnessing the incident. According to him, they had been driving around, playfully chasing each other and speeding, when Dylan lost control and collided with the guardrail. When his friend reached the scene of the accident, however, Dylan was nowhere to be found, and he never saw his friend again. Approximately 30 minutes after the crash, a man resembling Scott was observed walking toward a house in the Echo Bluff area, located about an eighth to a quarter of a mile from the crash site. The homeowners noted that the man appeared to look like Dylan, but was slightly shorter than he would typically be. They described how he approached their house, but quickly turned around and left when a dog began barking, leading to speculation that he might have sought to use their phone but was deterred. Dylan's jacket was later discovered lying in a field across from the accident site, alongside an envelope containing the title to his trailer home, which he usually kept in his wallet that went missing along with him. It's uncertain whether the wallet has ever been located. At the time of his disappearance, Dylan was navigating a difficult divorce. The day prior to his disappearance, he spent time with his best friend and had also visited his family, where he discussed his divorce with his father, seeking advice and expressing his concerns about his best friend, whom he believed might be having an affair with his wife. Dylan had a minor criminal history from when he was 18, involving theft of scrap metal, and he was on probation for that offense. Unbeknownst to him, a warrant for his arrest due to a probation violation had been issued just 3 days before he went missing. However, his family does not believe he would have fled because of the situation, even if he had been aware of the warrant. They assert that Dylan had managed to turn his life around after past troubles and had been doing well. They further noted that after his disappearance, he failed to collect his monthly Social Security checks, which constituted his sole source of income. Although the police stated that there was no evidence of foul play in Dylan's disappearance, his family remains convinced that he may not have been the one driving at the time of the crash and suspect that he might have been murdered. As it stands, his case remains unsolved. Lisa Stebick, a 38-year-old mother of two, disappeared on April 30th, 2007, from her home in Plainfield, Illinois. Her case bears eerie similarities to the disappearance of Stacy Peterson, which occurred just a few months later, about 30 minutes away. Both women were the same height, same weight, and vanished under strikingly similar circumstances. At times, search efforts for the two cases were combined due to the uncanny parallels, leading to occasional confusion between them. Lisa had been married to Craig Stebick for 14 years. Despite their long history, their marriage was falling apart, and Craig had filed for divorce in January of 2007, citing irreconcilable differences. Though the couple had issues, there were few public signs of trouble beyond a domestic call to their home a few months prior, reportedly verbal in nature, with no charges filed. However, the reality behind closed doors painted a much darker picture. Friends described Lisa as afraid of Craig. She had sought counseling at a center for battered women, and in private, she told her attorney that Craig was relentless, cruel, inconsiderate, domineering, and verbally abusive. Most concerning of all, she claimed his behavior was harming their children's mental well-being. Adding to the tension, Lisa's attorney had taken action to have Craig evicted from the family home. On the very day Lisa disappeared, eviction papers were either served or filed. Accounts vary. The situation had become volatile. The Stebicks were living together during the divorce process due to financial strain. The house was mortgaged for far more than the couple could afford, and Craig had reportedly been laid off. Lisa, however, seemed optimistic about starting her own life. She told friends she was excited to move forward, and even began dating a recently divorced man. On the evening of April 30th, Craig claimed he was working in the backyard around 6 p.m. when he heard Lisa leave the house. According to him, she had likely gone to Plainfield North High School to run the track, as she often did. Craig added that he sent their kids on a bike ride to buy candy at a nearby store around the same time. However, Lisa never returned that night. The next morning, she failed to show up for work. Strangely, Craig did not report her missing. It was Lisa's neighbor who contacted authorities, saying Lisa had warned them that if she ever vanished, something was very wrong. When questioned, Craig maintained that Lisa had simply run off, perhaps tired of their tense living situation. He insisted her car was still in the driveway and that only her purse and prepaid cell phone were missing. However, authorities found it odd that Lisa left on foot, as Plainfield North High School was about an hour's walk away. Her friends insisted Lisa never accepted rides from others and preferred to have her car with her at all times. Detectives dug deeper into Lisa's personal life and quickly discovered that she was on the brink of freedom. She was close to finalizing Craig's eviction. Her family vehemently denied the idea that she would simply abandon her children, especially considering the abuse allegations she had shared privately. Authorities also attempted to track Lisa's phone, but Craig's controlling behavior complicated the investigation. He allowed Lisa only a prepaid cell phone with limited minutes, reportedly to restrict her communications. Without call records or GPS data, investigators couldn't determine whether she had made plans to meet anyone that evening. Suspicion continued to mount against Craig, particularly when his behavior during the investigation raised eyebrows. Despite Lisa's known routine, no one at the high school saw her that night. As weeks passed, authorities organized extensive searches of the surrounding area, including rural farmland, lakes, and Craig's father's cabin in Michigan, where Craig had spent the previous weekend. By May, investigators obtained a search warrant for the Stebick home. Inside, they found over 15 firearms, some for hunting and others of questionable purpose. When authorities searched Craig and Lisa's home, they made a significant and disturbing discovery: blood evidence inside Lisa's car. The blood was not obvious, meaning it wasn't visible to the naked eye. Investigators found it using luminol, a chemical that reacts with blood. Forensic testing confirmed that it was Lisa's blood. While the amount wasn't disclosed, authorities stated that it was enough to suggest an injury had occurred. This was a major turning point in the investigation. At this point, Craig Stebick's behavior came under intense scrutiny. Many were already suspicious because he hadn't reported Lisa missing. Now, with Lisa's blood found in her car, the focus on Craig intensified. Craig's demeanor throughout the investigation was widely criticized. He refused to cooperate fully with authorities. While he initially allowed interviews and searches, he eventually stopped speaking to police altogether. He also barred his 2 children from speaking with investigators or participating in any interviews. To many, this seemed like an attempt to control the situation. His lawyer, however, claimed that Craig was simply protecting his rights and his children's privacy. Craig's refusal to engage further raised questions about his innocence. If he had nothing to hide, why not cooperate? Lisa's family publicly expressed their frustration and disbelief over Craig's behavior, urging him to provide answers and help authorities. As the search for Lisa continued, her case began drawing national attention. Around this time, Stacy Peterson disappeared under similarly suspicious circumstances. Stacy was the wife of Drew Peterson, a former police officer from nearby Bolingbrook, Illinois. The 2 women's cases were eerily similar. Both were young mothers. Both were going through troubled marriages. Both disappeared within months of each other and just 30 minutes apart. Both involved controlling husbands who became the focus of investigations. Neither woman has ever been found. The similarities were so striking that the public and media often mention Lisa and Stacy's cases in the same breath. At one point, search teams for the 2 cases even combined efforts. The shared circumstances intensified scrutiny on both Craig Stebick and Drew Peterson. However, while Drew Peterson would eventually face legal consequences related to Stacy's case, no charges were ever filed against Craig Stebick in connection with Lisa's disappearance. Despite the blood evidence, authorities were unable to make an arrest or move forward with charges. Without a body or additional forensic evidence, prosecutors did not have enough to build a solid case against Craig or anyone else. Lisa's disappearance remains a cold case, frustrating investigators and her family to this day. Her family has not given up hope. Lisa's relatives, particularly her cousin Melanie Greenberg, continue to raise awareness and search for answers. They have stated that Lisa would never have abandoned her children and are adamant that foul play was involved. They believe someone, most likely Craig, knows more than they're saying. Lisa Stebick's disappearance remains unsolved. Despite extensive searches, media coverage, and circumstantial evidence pointing to foul play, no one has been held accountable. Craig Stebick has maintained his innocence and continues to live his life, though he remains under a cloud of suspicion while still residing in the Plainfield area. Lisa's family continues to fight for justice, vowing to keep her story alive until answers are found. Her case serves as a tragic reminder of how quickly lives can be shattered and how, even with promising leads, justice can remain elusive. If you or anyone you know has information regarding Lisa Stebick's disappearance, please contact the Plainfield Police Department or the FBI. Even the smallest detail could finally provide the answers Lisa's family has waited for since that fateful day in April 2007.